Hi, Harbor Kids volunteers. It's Ashley here. I have been wanting to have a meeting with you guys to talk to you about Harbor Kids, but it's just not happening in my part time schedule. So I decided I was going to use Charles's financial planning technology and record a video going over some things about Harbor Kids that I want to communicate with you. So sorry for that this is a little bit impersonal, but it's what we have to do for the time being. So the point of this video is just to go over some stuff about Harbor Kids with you. So I run things a little bit differently than Shannon did. Some things are exactly the same. Some of you maybe haven't even noticed any change at all. But I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page, that everything's being clearly communicated, because it makes sense in my head, but you guys aren't mind readers. So the first thing I want to go over is the schedule. So hopefully you all, oops, that's not what I meant to do. How do I do this? I think it's this. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you guys all got a copy of the schedule. You should have received it in your email. You also can access it on the Harbor Kids Facebook page. So that's what the schedule looks like. I forgot what I'm supposed to say about the schedule. So let me click over here really quick. Oh, wow. This is amazing. Okay. The first person on the schedule for every class is the lead for that morning. So right here, November 17th, you can see Pamela Brooks is listed first. That means my mom's the lead. The second and third person are support people. So if you are in the nursery,
someone's at the Redding
house. At our Airbnb. Good to know. The first person in the nursery, they are in charge. Well, I'll explain in more detail later, but they are in charge of that morning. On the teaching schedule, so not for nursery, but for preschool, K through 2, 3rd through 5th, the first person on the schedule is the teacher, and the second person on the schedule is the helper. And again, we'll discuss more about what that means. You might notice that there's a new thing, and that is on nursery and toddler class, on some Sundays, there's a float. That's what the F stands for. So you can see right here on November 17th, Selby is going to be floating between nursery and toddler. Honestly, we don't know what it's going to look like when we split to those two classes. So this is just a safety net to hopefully have enough coverage. If we have way more than enough coverage, I'll pull that float off. If we need more coverage, I'll make sure we have a float every single Sunday. So please give me your feedback about how that's going in the new classrooms. If you need to trade shifts with somebody, please use the contact list. Oh, whoops, that's not how I do this. Here we go. Okay, so there's the contact list. Again, you should have received that, an email copy. We have a hard copy for you this Sunday that you can pick up from me. This is a great way to find what you need. So if you are scheduled in the nursery, find somebody else in the nursery, call them, text them, ask them if they can trade with you. The other thing you can do is you can use the Harbor Kids volunteer Facebook page. This is a super easy way to make a trade. So if you are not already part of the Harbor Kids Volunteers Facebook group page, please let me know as soon as possible because I want to add you. This is a private group, so nobody can see this. On there, I will say, hey, here's the schedule, here's some change. And you can also post, I need somebody to cover for me on November 17th at 9 o'clock in the nursery. So feel free to use that. Please do not post it in the regular Harbor Facebook group. That is open to anybody, and those people have not all been background checked, and it's really awkward to say, thanks for being so willing to help, but we're not going to use you. So please make sure you post only in this group right here, not in the regular Facebook page. When you are done with making your trade, please email me. You can email my personal email address if you want, or you can email kids, KIDS, at harborfolsom.com. That email address will not change when we get a new children's director, so it might be easy to get in the habit of just emailing that. Right now, it will come to my personal email page, but eventually it'll go to the permanent director. Also, when you are scheduled, you will have a copy of the schedule, but I will also send you an email reminder that week. So sometimes I'll put it on my schedule, I'll mess something up. So it's nice to get that email reminder like, oh yeah, that's right. And it's also a good reminder if you need to make a trade. I try to send it on Tuesday so that you have several days before Sunday to make a trade if you need it. All right, let's talk about role of teacher and the helper. I told you that I was going to tell you about that, so now is the time. Everybody in the class has some responsibility, and you can see, oops, my mouse is gone. You can see here what some of those responsibilities are. So in the classroom, first of all, we are to present and keep the gospel in clear view. That is number one at all times. The gospel is that we are saved by grace, not by works. We're not teaching them that we want them to be really good people, because we don't want a bunch of good people who are going to hell. So it's not about moral behavior. It's not about being a good kid. It's not about listening to your parents. It's about the fact that they and we are sinners saved by grace, and it just requires us to trust God. There's nothing we can do to earn our salvation. Number two is to shepherd our kids to understand themselves in God's world. So shepherding is caring for. We want the kids to walk out feeling genuinely loved, not just feeling, we want them to be genuinely loved. So be praying for your attitude when you go in, that the kids would walk out recognizing that they are loved by you and that they are loved by God. And number three is that we are the authority in there. Don't be afraid of being the authority. Sometimes it's easy to think, well, I want them to really like me, so I need to be easy. That is not at all true. Kids need boundaries. They respond to boundaries. We absolutely need to be kind, but we also need to teach them how to behave under authority. And as adults, we are under God's authority. And that's something that for many adults, it's hard to understand because we maybe haven't had kind authorities, or we just don't like being under authority. But it's very clear in scripture that we are under authority and that kids are also under authority. So it's not just that we're in charge because we like being in charge, but we are in charge because it's beneficial for them and we're teaching them something really important for the rest of their life. Before class and during the week, please be maintaining your personal relationship with Jesus Christ. If you are struggling spiritually, let us know. That's totally fine. We all go through it, but please make it a priority to, be reading your Bible regularly, to be spending time in prayer. You focus on you and your relationship with God. Number two is regularly attend Harbor services. You don't have to be there every single Sunday, but please make it a priority to be there. You are a really important part of this church, and we want to see you there. Number three, please be praying for the kids for whom you're responsible. Number four, arrive on time and well prepared. You notice on time is circled. This is a big deal and something that I feel like we've kind of gotten lax on. Please arrive at least 10 minutes early, preferably 15 or 20 minutes early. For first service, please arrive by 8:45. That gives you enough time to get set up and for the kids to be dropped off with the person who's actually going to be teaching them. For second service, this says 10:20, but that's too late. Get there at 10:15, 15 minutes early. Second service is important because even though the first service teacher is there, so it's not like the classroom's empty, a lot of times the first service teacher has to leave. So personally, I have to go pick up my kids. And so if I can't leave, that other teacher can't leave because my kids are in their class. And also it doesn't allow my kids to have proper adjustment between services. So be thinking about, that first service teacher, they need to get out of there. Also, we want kids to be dropped off with the teacher who's actually teaching. It's beneficial for the adult teaching, it's beneficial for the child, and it's beneficial for the parent to understand this is what's going on this morning. I'm picking my kid up from the same person with whom I dropped them off. So please, 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 please be there on time. And number five, please make an effort to attend any meeting associated with your involvement. This is meeting number one. I won't do meetings just willy-nilly because I don't have time for that, and I know you don't either. But if we do have a meeting or if I continue to do this video thing, please make sure you watch it or attend the meeting. The teacher, like I said before, is the person listed first on the schedule. You need to review your lesson before Sunday. And the earlier you review it, the better. Judy found an error in her lesson plan like 2 weeks out. And so it gave me time to fix it and get the new lesson plan sent out. So I definitely will continue to make many, many errors. So read things as far ahead as you can so that you can correct me. Number two is you are the person leading the lesson. You're leading the entire thing. So you're leading the craft if there is one, the game, everything. It's all you. Number four, you need to communicate with the helper before class what you want from them. So this coming Sunday, there's like an interview with a Bible character. So I reached out to my helper earlier this week and said, hey, is that something you're comfortable doing? Can we pretend you're the Bible character and have the class interview you? And then at that point, the helper can say yes or no. You don't necessarily have to ask them before Sunday if it's something small. You could maybe just ask them Sunday morning when you get there, hey, would you mind doing this little part, leading the craft? Oftentimes also, like when I'm teaching Sunday school, if I have to run into the service to do announcements, I'll say, hey, helper, while I'm gone, I need you to lead whatever. So just communicate with them. And every teacher is going to have different expectations of what they want from their helper. So it's really important that we just take a minute to explain what we want from them. Number 5 is to sign kids in and out on the sign-in sheet. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But please help the kids sign in and out. And connect with the parents. Make eye contact with the parents, especially if they're new. But even if they're not new, make the parents feel comfortable, like you've got it under control. They're leaving their child in good hands, which I know they are, but they don't necessarily know that. Number 6 is ensure the total number of people is written on the sign-in sheet. So I'm going to go to that sign-in sheet right now. So here is what a sample sign-in sheet looks like. Down here on the bottom, this is where we need every service to write how many people total are there. It doesn't matter if it's a teenager who wasn't scheduled, who's in there to help, if a parent stayed for some reason, just total. So if there were 5 babies and 2 adults, you'd write 7. And we need that for both services. So 9 o'clock in this column, write it down here. 10:30 in this column, write it down here. So again, the teacher is in charge of making sure that that is done. That doesn't mean that you have to do it. Maybe you just say, hey, helper, can you count right now while we're doing the craft and put the number on the sign-in sheet? But please make sure that's done. And then number 7 is if you're unable to teach on a day that you're scheduled, find a replacement. We've already talked about that, and email me to let me know about the change. Helper is the person listed second. Again, discuss with the teacher beforehand to make sure you understand what their expectations are of you. Help with signing kids in and out. Help write the total. It's a big deal, in case you can't tell. Number 4 is to take kids on bathroom runs. We'll talk about that in a minute. Number 5, help with general crowd control. Please don't make the teacher have to say, hey, Joe, can you please go help that child over there? If there's a kid being loud or disruptive, just go sit next to them, put your hand on their shoulder, quietly ask them to be quiet. Please don't yell from across the room. Joe, quiet, sit down, because now you're being more of a distraction than Joe was. So just kind of run behind the scenes crowd control. Number 6 is help with craft time, especially for preschool and even K through 2. Oftentimes both teachers are needed for that. Number 7, please review the lesson beforehand. Just have some idea of what it is, because if something happens to the teacher that morning, which does happen, maybe like twice a year, the teacher wakes up with a sudden onset of the flu or whatever, the helper is going to teach. So just have some idea of what it is. Number 8 is you need to contact the person who's on call if needed. So every Sunday there is somebody listed on call. Their number is down here on the bottom of the schedule. So if you need help, somebody's out of control, somebody needs a parent for some reason, somebody's crying hysterically and you can't get them to stop, then the helper would text the person who's on call, and then that on-call person could help you. Excuse me. And then number 9, if you're unable to help on a day you're scheduled, find a replacement again and email me. All right, let's talk about the sign-in sheets. So with the sign-in sheets, first of all, I don't know if you guys know this, but there are name tags behind the sign-in sheets. So if you're a new teacher or if you just don't know everybody's names, grab those name tags, write them, give them to all the kids. Also, this is the best spot for you to communicate with me because I read these sign-in sheets every week. So I know Shannon had a list in the cupboards where you could write like, we need tissues or whatever you needed, but I don't go in the classrooms and look at them every Sunday. So don't write things there. I've tried to pull those sheets out so that you won't be tempted to write them and then feel frustrated that I didn't see it. But this is really the best place for you to write it. So I would write it on like the second or third page so that parents don't see it every time they, sign in like, hey, we need tissues in this room. But this is the best spot. Just write it on the bottom down here. On any page, I'll see all the pages. Also, if you notice, like right here, this child, I don't even know how to pronounce his or her name, Ambrosi, there's no date of birth there. If you see that that child is signed in, please say, hey, Joshua, can you please fill this out? And that's why I look at these every week to see if there's anything that needs to be updated or changed. So if I see something written there, I will update it the next week. Also, I intentionally leave 1 or 2 blank lines on the bottom of the first page. This is not the last child in this class. There are more kids on page 2. This is for new people so that they're not flipping through and holding the page open while they try to write all the information. If it's somebody's very first time, I'll just, sorry guys. If it's their very first time, I'll have them write the kid's name here, check whichever service it is, write their first name, the parent's first name, and the phone number. And I just tell them, we just have your phone number in case there's any sort of a problem and we need to get a hold of you. We'll send you a text message. So they'll initial in when they get there, then they'll initial out when they pick the child up. So that's if it's somebody's first time. If you notice that it's not somebody's first time, and you could even ask them, hey, are you guys a regular part of Harvard? Do you want me to add your name to this list permanently? Then write their name here, put a star by their name, put a star down here, and write add to list permanently or something like that. And then I will see that and I will add them to list. They'll be on there hopefully the next week. Every now and then I'll print 2 weeks at a time. So then they'd be on there 2 weeks from now. But please help me because I'm not in every class. So I don't know if somebody's regular. So I will check, every week I look at these. So sometimes I'll notice like, oh, I've seen this kid's name a couple times. I'm going to add them. But I'm one person and I need you guys. So be my eyes for that sort of thing. Also, if you are teaching preschool and you add somebody down here, you notice, hey, this person's a regular, they need to be added, and they don't have a preschool cubby tag, please take a picture of them with your phone and email it to me with their name, and then I'll go ahead and make their cubby tag. All right, we talked about bathroom policy, and I told you I'd tell you that. Now's the time for that funness. Okay, our bathroom policy is have as little contact with the child as possible. That's basically it. Do not go into the bathroom with the child if at all possible. Especially for older kids, just walk them to the bathroom, wait outside. When they come out, say, did you wash your hands? Did you flush the toilet? All right, let's go. If you have to go into the bathroom with a child, this happens sometimes, especially in preschool. They need help pulling their pants down or whatever, zipping their zipper. If you're going to go into the bathroom with a child, inform another adult or the helper, whoever else is in the class, and say, hey, I'm going to head in to help so-and-so zip up his zipper, and then leave the door cracked open so that the other adult can hear you and see you if needed. Don't leave it all the way open so that other kids can see in there, but just leave it cracked open a little bit and zip up their pants. If they need help with wiping or things that seem questionable, call their parent or actually text message their parent. We do not want any questions at all being asked about what's happening in that bathroom. We've never one time had an issue with this. I hope and pray that we never do have an issue with this, but I think it's really important that we recognize this is a potential problem area, and that we really take seriously the fact that we need to protect ourselves as volunteers and the kids also, but just be careful with the bathroom. If possible, we would prefer that women help in the bathroom. I know that women and men both are equally flawed, but it just is one of those things that looks slightly better. Don't shoot the messenger. Also, just be careful. Like, don't ever send a teenage boy into the bathroom to help a kid who's going to need help in there. Like, no, that is not a good situation. So please just be careful. We want to keep each other safe. We want to keep ourselves safe. So please, just be smart about that. Okay, as far as the lead, we talked about in the classroom what the policies are for teacher and helper. But in the nursery, like I mentioned before, the person listed first, where is it on the schedule, they are the lead. So Nina Robertson, you're the lead. Sierra Novak, Pamela Brooks, Sierra, Ashley, Mackenzie, Tracy, Cindy, Kathy, Cheryl, you guys are all the lead. What that means is you boss everybody around. So first of all, it's really important that you arrive on time. Extremely important that you arrive on time. Also, you are the one making sure someone is at the door every time a child gets there. So it doesn't necessarily mean you, but it means you say, hey, so-and-so, can you go to the door? Can you go help whoever sign in? In nursery, it's really, really, really important that during pickup and drop off, an adult, or not, I say adult, but I mean volunteer. So adult or teenager, anybody scheduled, makes contact with the parent at pickup and drop off. It's important, honestly, in all the classes. So everybody do this. But when when the child's picked up, say something about the kid, something to tell the parent, hey, I noticed your kid was in my class. They weren't forgotten the whole time. So maybe it's something simple like, Joe played with trains today and it was really cute to see that. Or I loved being able to cuddle with them. Or this person was a great listener. Can't wait to see you again next week. Something to the parent to let them know that you saw them. And then, so that's the first thing that the lead does, is they assign somebody to do door duty. And again, that could be somebody different for every kid, but just make sure there's always somebody at the door when a kid is arriving or being picked up. And then the second thing is the lead is in charge of making sure that that total gets written on the sign-in sheet. Again, you don't have to do it. You just have to assign somebody to do it. Also on the schedule, we've talked about the person who's on call. This person, I'm going to tell you all what they do. One, it'll be helpful for the on-call person to know, but two, it'll be helpful for you as the teachers to know what their role is. So this person also needs to arrive 15 minutes early. And if you're on call, when you arrive, you need to go check in with all the classrooms to ensure that the teacher has arrived and that they have what they need. Remind them that your phone number is on the lesson plan. It is always on the top of the lesson plan. Let me show you. I have a lesson plan here. We're going to get more in depth on the lesson plan in a second. But you can see here are the on-call people. There are their phone numbers. So the phone number can be found on the lesson plan if you're on call. And it can also be found on the schedule, which is posted in the classroom. It's in each of the classrooms. So that's where the phone numbers are. So if you're on call, you do not need to write your phone number on the sign-in sheet anymore. In fact, please don't do that. I just think it looks a little less professional, which I know we're not about professional, but we just want it to look clean and nice for people. So don't write your number on there, but you can remind the teacher it's on their lesson plan and it's also on the board in the room. Your phone number is not on the schedule that's posted outside because anybody could see that number. And we had an issue one time where a homeless person called somebody who was on call, and that was an interesting conversation. So I learned, and I'm not doing that anymore, but your phone number is posted inside the classrooms. So check in, make sure they have what they need. If the teacher has not arrived, you are responsible for waiting with the class and connecting to make sure the teacher is on his or her way. Everybody's phone number is posted in the classroom. So that contact list that I showed you earlier that you can use for trading, this contact list right here, it's posted in all the classrooms. So go find their phone number, send them a text. Hey, it's Ashley. I'm on call. I just want to make sure you're on your way to teach nursery at 9:00. During the service, going back. Wait until the teacher arrives or until we figure something out. You are the last resort if somebody doesn't show up. So you might be teaching, on a Sunday or something like that, but that is extremely, extremely rare. So you'll check in with all the classrooms, then you go to the service just as usual. During the service, please keep your phone out and visible because if somebody needs anything, they're going to be sending you a text message. Normally, the on-call just checks in with the classrooms, keeps their phone out, and nothing happens. But about once every 3 months, the on-call is actually utilized. So you are just our safety net, just in case. But if you are teaching and you need their help, feel free to reach out to them. That's what they are there for. Don't feel like, you're in a pinch and you have no option. You have help. That's what the on-call is there for. All right, we're almost done, you guys. I'm getting sick of hearing myself talk. I'm sure you are too. Let's talk about lesson plans. Your lesson plan will arrive in email. I send you your lesson plan generally about 1 week in advance. If you want a hard copy of the lesson plan, let me know. And if I have it done more than a week in advance, I will have it printed for you the week before. So you'll receive it in email in a PDF file. I will also print it and have it in the classroom for you the morning of. There's a binder in all of the baskets in the classrooms that has the lesson plan in it. So you don't need to print it and bring it in. There will be one for you. A few things that I want to point out on the lesson plan. First, here is the schedule, which is almost always updated. I make mistakes left and right. So hopefully that's correct. Again, the on-call number is here. That's what's the most important about this top part. And also knowing like, oh, if I'm Chrissy and my helper's not there yet, I at least know who my helper is so that I can contact her if needed. Amanda's never late. So right here is the memory verse. We do a memory verse for a whole month. And I would love it if we could really make the memory verses like a thing that we actually focus on. So when I'm teaching, what I will do is if it's the first week of the month, I'll just teach the first half of the first half of the memory verse. So I would teach, for the wages of sin is death. For the wages of sin is death. For the wages of sin is death. Second week, I would teach, for the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. Or maybe just end it there at eternal life. And then, as the month goes on, really focus on more and more of the verse. Some of them are short. This one's short, so you could probably do this in 2 weeks. But I would love it if we could make this more of a part of what we're doing. Oh, you know what? I just remembered one more thing. I'm going to add it right here because I don't want to forget it later. Okay. The memory verses, some of you were at Harbor years ago when I ran children's ministry, and we did like a memory verse video in the big church. And I'd love to do that again. Right now, my time is really crunched, so I don't have time to edit a video once a month. But I'm hoping that once I get in a better rhythm, I'll have a little bit more free time to do more things. And that's one of the things that's on my list that I would love to do. So encourage your kids to memorize that memory verse. Number 3 on here that I want to point out is every single lesson, there's going to be a main point. And the main point is just what we're trying to communicate. Sometimes the lessons, it's like there are 100 spiritual truths in this lesson plan, and there are many different ways we could go with it. But what is the core? Like, what are we getting at? And that's helpful for me as a teacher to remember and like constantly be reminding myself and the kids that like this is what we're talking about. Now, the rest of the lesson plan kind of changes every week. This week, it has quick summary. Sometimes it'll have like notes for the teachers. And then again, this week it says as kids arrive, there's like an event happening as they arrive. They should be participating in something. Normally that's not true. Normally it's just kind of free play. And that's the thing I remembered and added to the end. So I'll talk about that at the end. Every week there is this little musical worship section. A lot of you remember that when Shannon was running Harbor Kids, she had like music teachers and we would all go in the multi and we'd do like live music and it was awesome. But that's one of those things that I had to just scale down because it was a lot to manage. And I am trying to do a 40-hour-a-week job in 15 hours a week. So unfortunately, some things just have to get cut. And I'm sorry about that. If you want to take over musical worship, though, let me know. But what we have done in the meantime is Lauren Lundquist has been gracious enough to record 5 videos of her doing the hand motions. And I've done them already with my classes and the kids love them. It's awesome. It gives us an opportunity to talk about what the words mean. We'd have 5-10 minutes of like singing and dancing with our class. And it's super, super fun. So this tells you how to access those, but they're on the Harbor Kids YouTube account. And that should be logged in on the TVs in all the classrooms. And they're in a folder called Songs with Hand Motions. So that should make it easy for you to find. So you'd go to like my YouTube, Songs with Hand Motions, and then this is what they are. I also put the link here in case you want to watch it at home when you're prepping so that you could familiarize yourself with the hand motions, but that's not necessary. I normally just watch Lauren wing it and it works out being fine. Also every week there is a review right here. This little picture might look familiar. It's a visual timeline of the Old Testament. It's not every single event, but it's some of them. And at the top it says, in the beginning was the Word. And every week I talk to my kids about what is the Word? Because if you don't know, the Word means Jesus. That is used in the Bible. In the beginning was the Word. And then at the bottom it says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. It's really tiny. It's hard for me to see. But again, I say, who's the Word? The Word is Jesus. When did he become flesh? And remind them that he became flesh when he was born, which is down here on the bottom, the nativity thing. So this is like a cool image that in the beginning was the Word. Jesus was there in the beginning. At creation, he was there with God. And then down here when he was born, he became flesh, he became a human, and that's what we celebrate with Christmas. And then all these things happen in the middle. So I go over that every week to kind of give them big picture of how it works. And then I will talk to them about what happened last week. So last week we talked about the prophet Isaiah. And then I point out on this poster, all the classrooms have a poster in them of this, where last week is, where this week is. And then, sometimes they'll say, what do you guys think we're going to talk about next week? And it's not always like, we don't cover every single one, but it's fun to, give them some idea of what's to come. A few other things I want to point out. I skipped a lot of what was in this lesson plan, like the actual lesson. But at the end of the class for preschool and K-2 specifically, please have the kids ready to go 5 minutes before the service ends, because sometimes it just ends up being a bottleneck at the door where parents are just packed and lined up waiting for their kids. And so if we can have the kids ready so that as soon as the parent gets there, that kid's out and gone, next parent up, kid out, gone, to make that turnover a little bit more seamless, that'd be great. So that means have them put their shoes on, put their jackets on, have them acknowledge where their craft is. They don't necessarily have to take it out of the cubby and hold it, but at least say, do you know where your craft is? It's right there. When your parent gets here, grab it and go. The service is scheduled to end at 10:10 and 11:40, so they're scheduled to be 70 minutes. That is not always the case. Sometimes they go short, sometimes they go long, but that gives you a general idea of when it's supposed to end. This part right here, number 7, this is the materials that I am going to provide you. Some of them never change, like sign-in sheets, name tags. For preschool, I always, or not always, sometimes, most of the time, do picture cards. Shannon used to draw those by hand. They're adorable. You would not want me to do that. So mine aren't nearly as cute, sorry, but again, if you want to volunteer to draw picture cards, let me know. But a lot of these change from week to week based on the lesson. If you're wondering, like, what's she going to give me for this? How is this going to work? This will give you a list of everything I'm giving you. And then if there's something that you're like, well, I would really like to do whatever, feel free to get those materials on your own. The one exception is if you read the lesson plan and you're like, it really seems like she should be providing whatever, red paper. This thing calls for red paper, but it's not on the materials list. That means I forgot. So please tell me, because this materials provided list is what I use when I'm filling your baskets for Sunday morning. So if it is not on that list, it is not going to be in your classroom. So please let me know if there's something on the lesson plan that obviously I should provide, but I didn't put it in that materials provided box. The only things that I won't provide that will be in the classroom are things that are like basic supplies, like markers, crayons, pencils, stapler, tape, like office supplies. Those are all in the cupboard, and every class, and by class I mean preschool and up, should have white paper and construction paper if the students want to just draw. And then down here at the bottom, this is what's on the back of the program. So most of you know that every Sunday on the back of the program that the adults get in Big Church, there is a little blurb about what they learned that morning. When I am teaching Sunday school, I like to know what the parents will potentially ask so that I can help the kids kind of process through that and so that I can work it into my lesson. So that's why I put it at the end of your lesson plan, is so that you can make sure you cover that, because, the kids might be asked those questions by their parents. All right. So we talked about the memory verse. Another thing that is written in your lesson plan, but I didn't highlight it, is please, please, please use the Bibles. You don't have to read word for word from them. In fact, for most of your classes, I would recommend against them. But we want the kids to understand how you find things in the Bible and to recognize that the stories that we're telling them are not just fables, they're actually from the Bible. So I would encourage you to use the table of contents to talk about, is the chapter the big number or the small number? It's the big number. What's the small number called? The verse. Just helping familiarize them with the Bible every Sunday would be awesome. And then every now and then you'll have a craft. You don't have a craft every Sunday, but sometimes you do. And all the supplies for that are in that basket that I give you, with the exception, like I said, of, basic things like markers and scissors. If you need additional supplies, feel free to look for them. So sometimes people will feel like, well, I need an extra copy of this, but I don't know if I'm allowed to use the copy machine. You are. If you need help using the copy machine, you could find me, you could find somebody on staff. You could text the on-call. I don't know if they're all copy machines experts, but feel free to look around and find what you need. You can always go into my office. You can open the door next door and ask that class, hey, I can't find scissors. Do you have any that I can borrow? And if you do that, please make sure you write it on the sign-in sheet so that I can make sure I get you that supply for, moving forward. So I think that's it for the lesson plans. You could probably tell I'm like stealing things from a bunch of different places now. The Dig-In curriculum that Shannon was using, a book that Shannon gave me, the internet, the Bible. So bear with me. They're not always going to be wonderful and perfect, but I'm doing my best. Okay, a few miscellaneous things and then I'll be done, I promise. Number 1, going outside. Absolutely. You are welcome to take the kids outside during your lesson or during your class. However, please do not take them outside at the very beginning of class or at the very end of class, because that makes signing in and signing out a humongous hassle. So when you get there, have everybody sign in 15 minutes into the service. If you want to go outside for a game, or if they're just crazy and you need to go onto the playground for 5-10 minutes, go for it. I generally cover a couple rules before I go outside, and those rules are 1, stay with me, and 2, use a quiet voice. If they're too loud out there, they can hear it in the main auditorium and it's really distracting. So we don't want to do that. They don't have to be silent, but we just don't want them to be yelling. So yeah, feel free to go outside. That's totally allowed. Also, food and snacks, they are not allowed in the classroom at all. So if a kid gets there and they're eating a donut, this is very common. Encourage them to eat their donut outside of the classroom and finish it outside of the classroom, or bring it in, put it in their cubby, and then when they leave, they can take it out. There are many, many reasons for this food rule. The number 1 reason is ants. We have an ant problem, and it's generally left at bay because we're crazy about this. But that's the number 1 problem. Number 2 is just the mess that it leaves for that morning. So if somebody eats a donut in there at first service, second service has to deal with nasty donut crumbs everywhere. 3rd is allergies. We don't know what kids are allergic to what, and so we just don't want to deal with that. And the 4th thing is crying kids because they don't have what the other kid has. So Susie got there at 9 o'clock. Susie got a donut. Johnny got there at 9:15. All the donuts were gone. Johnny's crying because Susie's eating a donut. It's just one thing that we don't want to deal with. We don't have to deal with it. So no food. That's the rule. You could say Ashley's mean and she says so. The other thing that's not allowed in the classroom is adults who are not on the schedule. The reason for that is because they are not background checked. So if they're on the Harbor Kids list, yeah, they can come in if they want to help. Absolutely. You're welcome to come in every single Sunday and help if you want. But if it's just an adult who's like, oh, yeah, I wanted to check it out. Sorry, but in order to be in our classrooms, you have to be background checked. Please see Ashley. We would love to have you help us, but we need to run a background check first. The only exception to that rule is when we have a kid who's new, who's struggling, or who has a parent who's struggling. And, if we have a kid who's there and they're obviously upset and going to have a hard time coming into your classroom, we want the kid and the parent to feel loved and, not like, hey, drop your kid off and get out. You're not background checked. So keep that in mind. What I will generally do is I'll say, generally we have a policy that you have to be background checked to come into our classroom, but I can tell that Johnny's going to just have a rough time. So why don't you come in with him for a few minutes and see if you can help him become familiar with the environment and comfortable. And then, maybe after a few minutes, he'll feel fine and you'll be able to leave. If they come in and a few minutes in, you realize, yeah, that's not going to happen. This kid's really struggling. Or again, sometimes it's the parent that's really struggling. You might just say, hey, I can tell that this is going to be a rough Sunday. How would you feel about just staying this Sunday, staying through and helping him to have a positive experience? And then next Sunday, we'll try again to have, you drop him off. If you need help with that, let me know. Like I said, I'm happy to be the bad guy. But we do want to keep adults out of the classroom if possible. However, we're humans, we're loving, we want to put people above our program rules. So, yeah, that's that. Classroom management. I've had a few people ask me, like, what's our discipline policy? Honestly, we don't have one. Before, when I ran it, I read this book and we had this process, but I've gone back and forth about whether or not that was good. So sorry if I damaged any children through that. Basically, our policy is nicely discipline them. Don't put them in timeout. Obviously, don't spank them or use any sort of physical anything. Don't shame them. Honestly, the best thing to do is to have the helper sit by the child, or sometimes, even the teacher can say, hey, Johnny, you want to come sit next to me? Sometimes putting your hand on their shoulder and saying, shh, it's time to be quiet, it's time to focus. Sometimes that can help. Sometimes you'll just get a kid who's squirrely and it's just going to be one of those days where they're going to go, color in the corner for the morning. It's not ideal, but sometimes that's what has to happen. Also, do not be afraid if the child is really out of hand to call the parent. I know that I would want that, and I actually have been called before for my kid was melting down emotionally, but don't be afraid to do that. We as parents know sometimes our kids are going to be jerks, sometimes we're jerks, sometimes they're just having a bad day. So if you do have to call the parent because the child was poorly behaved, please make sure you communicate with them. And what I will do, because I have kicked a kid out of my Sunday school class once before, is I tried to touch base with the parent quickly when they first got there and said, here's kind of the issue that we had. I have to get back to teaching the class, but I would love to have a chance to talk to Johnny after class and maybe brainstorm with you about how we can have a more successful time next week. So would you be willing to come back at the end of class so that we can spend a few minutes talking to each other? And then during that after class time, just reminding both the child and the parent, we love you. We know you can have a successful time next week. And then working with the parent, what are some strategies you use at home? What are some things you could recommend that would help him or her to have more success and to feel more comfortable in the classroom? And then if you do that, please tell me, because generally I will hear about it from the parent, and I want to be able to have your back and to understand why that happened. But if I don't know your side, it's hard for me to do that. So please let me know if that ever does happen. And if there's a classroom management issue that you realize is ongoing that we maybe need to create a policy for, let me know and we can work together for that. Very last thing, you are almost there. Some of you will notice that the classrooms have been significantly reduced. I took almost all of the toys out of there. I want them to look less cluttered, but also I want the toys to be easier to clean. So what I have created is I've created sensory bins that will rotate in the classrooms, so they're not always going to be the same. You will in general have 2 different activities in those sensory bins, and they're just things for kids to do that they're not wild and crazy and loud. We don't want our classrooms to be wild and crazy and loud, but they're fun and they help kind of engage them. So feel free to use those. Please keep an eye on them. Make sure all the pieces go back inside there because like I said, we're going to pull them out at the end of every week and wash them when necessary. Okay, I think that's it. I'll probably think of something else as soon as I click end recording. But I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you. As a parent, I'm going to get emotional, but I'm very thankful for the impact that you all have on my children. And I really feel like it's a village. And I'm so thankful that there are other people pouring into their lives spiritually and emotionally. So thank you for loving on my kids. As the person in this interim director position, thank you for coming alongside me and loving on these kids and loving on these parents and sharing the gospel with them. This job can be extremely overwhelming, but I feel very loved and supported by all of you saying yes, I want to be there. I want to join the team. I want to pour into these kids. So thank you for doing that. I apologize in advance if I'm not as attentive to you volunteers as I should be. Please know that my heart is bursting with love and appreciation for you. And I'm sorry if that doesn't come out. The other thing I'll say about my personality is kind of rude by nature. Anything nice in me is 100% the Holy Spirit. But sometimes I might be short with you at church or, I don't know, give you a RBF face or something like that. It's nothing personal. That's just how I look, and I apologize for that. If I have a problem with you, I will come to you and tell you. There will be no question about that. But sometimes I just am in the zone Sunday morning. I'm like teaching Sunday school, trying to get my kids to where they're supposed to be. I'm like business. And sometimes that can come across as rude. And that's something I'm working on. I'm not saying it's okay, but I just want you to know that's kind of a little bit about me. So please show me grace. If you're worried that I'm mad at you, feel free to ask and I will tell you, no, I'm not. Or I'll tell you, yes, I am. All right. Love you guys. That's it. Thank you so much for watching this. Bye.